Hello, everyone, and welcome to Healthcare Marketing Executive. I am so excited to be doing another episode here with none other than the outstanding Tiffany Burnett. If you guys haven't heard of Tiffany, she is the Chief Marketing Officer at KLAS Research. She's an accomplished healthcare marketing executive and communications executive with more than 16 years of experience in strategy, building brands, driving growth, really across health systems where she started, as well as research organizations where she is today. She's just an incredible human being, featured in Utah's business magazine Under 40, and just doing so many great things, among which the Rodeo Association is one of them. So, Tiffany, I'm so excited that you're with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sal. I'm really excited to be here.
It's our pleasure to host you and always great to hang out with you. To kick things off here, Tiffany, I think it's good for people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit better. So help us understand your unique path in your career from being at health systems to now at KLAS running marketing.
Yeah. So I spent a very long time sort of on the other side of the coin, so to speak. I worked in the acute care world for a long time. And I served as both marketing leader as well as an operations leader. And I learned so much through all of my experiences there. I was still in the acute care world during the days of COVID, which for anyone working at the bedside was extremely hard. And while I wasn't at the bedside, I certainly supported the people who were at the bedside. So when I think back on my career, I think working inside the health system changed really the way I see everything. When you're that close to the front line and you see clinicians juggling the impossible workloads and watching teams rally around a patient or a family that's in crisis, I can't help but just develop this really rich respect for the people that make healthcare happen. And I think it's important to keep that in mind because the humanity of it all is really the core of what we do. It's messy and it's human. And at the same time, it's just incredibly inspiring. So I really feel like those experiences taught me that behind every data point is a person. And, working in research now, we deal with data every single day. But looking at the data as a person, as a caregiver, as a patient, I think that perspective has changed everything that I do at KLAS and the way that I think about things. So even though we deal in research and insights, I don't ever want to lose that perspective of the people behind the numbers. And when I think about marketing now, I think it's that connection more than communication that draws people in and makes your message resonate. It's really not so much about how well do we tell our story, but more about how do we honor the story of healthcare providers at the bedside, in the front line, in the messy. And I think, too, that mindset really helps keep you grounded as a marketer and reminds us that empathy in the way that we approach what we do is not a soft skill. Empathy is a strategic skill. And in healthcare, trust is built on understanding, and understanding ultimately starts with listening. And it's listening to those people that are on the front line to make that message resonate and stick and relatable.
Yeah, that's so well said, Tiffany. I think in marketing, it's very easy to just look at the data and what's the monthly report and how are we tracking? That connection piece and the trust really remains the North Star for all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, data is important, right? And so I love this connection of the data, making sure you have the data and then connecting it to the people. Data-driven marketing, KLAS is well known for delivering world-class research. In fact, had the privilege of having Dan Check with us on the Outcomes Rocket a few weeks ago, talking about the big, beautiful bill, all the issues happening within the space. How do you balance rigor of data and the guidance that you give with storytelling that connects in the way that you just mentioned is so important?
I think at KLAS, you're absolutely right. Our credibility and our brand comes from the rigor of our data. But our impact, I think, depends on how that data connects with people. So we sort of sit at the intersection between analytics and empathy. we're not just reporting out the numbers, but we're translating those numbers into meaning. And if you really distill it down, numbers are just numbers, right? Data points are just data points. Without the story, what does the data mean? What is it telling us? What can this predict? Numbers are just that. They're a set of numbers. So we start with the science and our rigorous data collection and validation and analysis. I mean, that is the foundation of what we do, but we don't just stop there. I believe, and I tell my team all the time, that our job in marketing is to find the human heartbeat behind those numbers. And that means framing those insights in a way that helps healthcare leaders understand and feel the why behind the data, just not what the data is. It's more than just numbers on a spreadsheet or a chart. And I think we do a nice job of balancing that rigor with creativity by being storytellers of the data. And having integrity in that is so important to me. Every message that we put out there has to be true to the research that we've conducted. But we use the story, whether it's a provider success story, and we have a lot of those through our Arch Collaborative and through providers that have been on our website and looked at the data and made an excellent purchasing decision or are trying to understand what their options are for a new technology. So those stories, as well as stories of our vendor partners that have used the data to improve, and understanding the why behind that gives that story the soul that we need in order to be effective, not only in our messaging, but in staying true to who the brand of KLAS is. And that's very important to me, building on the brand and making sure that we remain credible, trustworthy, honest. I mean, that is what we do. And so honoring that in every story that we tell not only leans into our credibility, but it's who we are as an organization.
Yeah, no, I love that, Tiffany. So some great examples there. And what's your take on archetypes, brand archetypes? And some people are like, this is where we are, or this is the set, and this is what we're going to stick with. Some people are like, hey, you got to be clear on your ICP. Where are you on it?
I mean, I think there's been so much that has changed in the last few years in personas, right? And I think not only with that change has come adaptability. Marketers are needing to adapt the message to the persona, to the archetype, to the landscape in front of them. And I think it's an ever-changing thing. I mean, we look at our audience and we segment our audience on a consistent basis, but that is changing over time. And one of the biggest changes that I've seen in my tenure, when I compare now compared to 15 years ago, the way that we communicate and the way that relationships are built with brands is very different. Understanding what the motivation is behind your audience, I think, has always been important. But there's so much coming into those folks right now that being clear about who you're talking to and what you want them to think, feel, and believe about your organization is really where I feel like the power is.
Yeah. Keep it simple, right? And make sure you're connecting with them. So simplicity is something that I think, me too, like I strive for it, Tiffany, and I know a lot of our listeners do too. It's hard to do it when you have regulation and compliance hurdles. So from your vantage point, what strategies have you found most effective in turning those constraints into opportunities rather than roadblocks?
Yeah, I would say at KLAS, we're a little bit different than the acute care or provider landscape in that we're not necessarily bound by the same amount or rigor of the regulation that healthcare organizations are held to. But I think we operate in a space where trust and accuracy function almost like regulation. I mentioned earlier, every word we put out is important. And every word that we put out as a research institution has to be true and fair and honest and backed by the data. So the way I look at it is those constraints, whether they're legal or ethical or reputational, can actually make your messaging stronger and it can make your marketing stronger. Thinking through those lenses forces you to slow down, and it forces you to clarify your message and focus on what is really important. And again, how you're building that relationship with that target audience. And when you work within those boundaries thoughtfully, you build credibility and you build that trust. So even though our challenges are very different than a vendor partner that we work with or than a healthcare provider, I think the principles are the same. Use guardrails as your guide for integrity, And in healthcare, transparency isn't a limitation, it's a superpower. We need to be transparent about the things we're doing and the way that we're approaching them and what the benefit that our product can bring.
I love that. That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Tiffany. And look, with regulation, you also have innovation too. Yeah, by the way, we had a fantastic panel, folks. This was last year at the SWAY conference. Tiffany was able to join us on the stage. And one of the topics that I really enjoyed talking to Tiffany about was innovation and what she and her team are doing in this space. So Tiffany, AI is everywhere. Digital transformation is happening. It's evolving how we do business. What do you see as the biggest disruptors or opportunities for healthcare marketing over the next 3 to 5 years?
Sway was an excellent conference, by the way. I had a great time, and thank you again for hosting me on that panel.
Of course. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that we're entering one of the most transformative periods of healthcare marketing that we've ever really seen. And I really believe like the biggest disruptors are also the biggest opportunities. And they're the same forces. They are AI, they are data transparency, and they are trust. And it's no secret that AI is changing everything about our workflow and what we're doing, how we're doing it. And I think it's changing how we market. What I want us to do is take a step back and have it help us listen, change how we listen. The real power, I believe, of AI isn't in automating content. It's uncovering patterns. And if you think about this from a healthcare perspective, this really isn't all that different than so many healthcare solutions on the clinical side. There's lots of AI right now that is helping in diagnostics. We can virtually predict if and when a patient will become septic, right, through AI tools. That same methodology of uncovering patterns is the same thing that I think we replicate in marketing. It's understanding what healthcare leaders need before they can even articulate it. And that gives us a chance to make marketing way more intelligent, timely, personal. But I think it's important to also note that with that power comes a tremendous amount of responsibility. And credibility is everything. So taking that responsibility seriously is really important. Digital transformation, AI, these things are reshaping our relationships at every turn. Vendors and providers are working closer together now, I think, than ever. And our marketing has to reflect that. I think the best marketers will be the ones who can articulate how technology is truly changing the outcome, the reality of the outcome, and not just in abstract terms, but in real human-centered ways. It's not enough anymore to talk about the product or the features. We have to show the real outcomes and tell the real stories that connect technology to better care, to better clinician experience. And really, I think that's where digital transformation, where the power lies in that. Yeah, I think over the next few years, it'll be interesting to see what happens with AI and this ever-evolving state. But I see marketing evolving from being a voice about the industry to being a partner in the progress of AI to the industry. And I think that's a huge opportunity. It's exciting, and I think the world ahead is exciting. We won't just promote solutions anymore. We'll help the industry move forward by making ideas clear and human and ultimately meaningful.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. I think that's very well said. And it all points back to connecting. Get rid of the features and benefits talk.
Yep.
And tell me about like how this is going to make an impact for my organization, for my patients. That's so spot on. Look, folks, the end of these episodes are going to be lessons and advice for leaders in the market. But before we go there, I wanted to just ask you about the rodeo, Tiffany. Like, I just want to know, like, how did you get involved in it? And do you see any parallels from rodeo and marketing?
Oh, gosh. Well, I got involved. So I grew up in a very rural community. I come from a long legacy of rodeo families. So I showed
really?
Growing up. I
Super cool.
competed in rodeo growing up, met my husband through the horse industry. And so for us, it's sort of just been a lifestyle. My kids now compete. My son goes to Hill College in Hillsborough, Texas on a rodeo scholarship.
Wow.
And so he competes in the tie-down roping and the team roping.
What's his name?
His name is Tiffany Burnett.
Oh, Brighton. Hey, Brighton. Congrats on the scholarship, my friend. That's huge.
Yeah. And then my daughter's 15 and she's in high school rodeo. And I have a blast chasing them and competing, watching them compete and really make life their own. I think it's really fun as a parent to see them come into their own. And this is all part of the world for them. So it's really fun.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What a great tradition to have, Tiffany. And then any parallels between rodeo and marketing, or is it just a good way to unplug?
I think it's a good way to unplug. I will say the Western lifestyle is hard. Calves don't feed themselves. Horses don't feed themselves. We live in Utah. It's cold here in the wintertime. Ice needs to be broke so that livestock can drink. It teaches work ethic and it teaches hard work. It teaches you don't stop when things get hard. You stop when the job is done. And I think if there's any parallel between my world outside of the office, which, by the way, I've had multiple people tell me if they didn't know, they wouldn't know. I don't reflect a cowgirl per se. But I think at the end of the day, the lesson in the two parallels is really more about work ethic and never quitting. You don't quit. You don't give up. You might revamp, you might retry, you might re-strategize, but you don't give up.
Wow. I love that. That is so great. That is so great. Thank you for sharing that, Tiffany. Look, for the leaders out there wanting to do better, wanting to do more, have more impact, what's one lesson you wish you had learned earlier as a marketing executive? And what advice would you give them?
Oh gosh, there's so much that I wish that I would have known. I wish that early on, I would have realized that marketing leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about learning to ask better questions. For a long time, I thought I needed to come into the room with the answer. And what I've realized over time is I need to come into the room with the questions that will lead to the answer. So early in my career, I thought that great marketing came from brilliant campaigns and perfect messaging. And over time, I realized that the real magic happens when you deeply understand the people that are involved and the problems that they're trying to solve. And not only that, but how does your brand plug into that, right? How are you the solution to the problem and help them do it better? And this really only comes, again, from better listening, asking those important questions, distilling it down, and really getting to the root of knowing what you're listening for. You have to understand the challenges that people face every day and honor that. So I think if I had advice to up-and-coming marketers, it would be don't rush the journey. There's no shortcut to this. And not only is there no shortcut, but relationships are going to be your best friend. Building those relationships is far more important than having the answers. And chasing understanding more than you chase attention. You can have all the accolades in the world and get all the attention, but without the understanding of what you're doing and how it helps other people solve their problems, they really aren't all that meaningful. And then lastly, your work has a ripple effect. I feel passionately that the work that I do in this office every day impacts a clinician somewhere in the world. And when I come to work and I think about that and I take that so seriously, I think it makes what I do more meaningful to me, but I also think it makes me better at what I do. So, approaching marketing from a standpoint of curiosity and compassion and not just ambition and accolades. If you do that, I think you'll find influence that follows you naturally and you'll be way more impactful.
That is awesome, Tiffany. What great few tips there and really wisdom that you're sharing with us. And in particular, the one that stood out to me is don't chase likes and attention, chase wisdom, chase understanding.
Yeah.
And the rest will follow you. It's amazing how it happens, but it does.
It's true. It's true.
Tiffany, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This was a lot of fun and very helpful to learn from you. If anybody wanted to reach out and learn more about you or any thoughts you put out there, where can they follow you?
Yeah. Look me up on LinkedIn. Connect. I'd love to have more connections and learn and make new friends in the industry. So absolutely, find me on LinkedIn, Tiffany Burnett.
Outstanding. Thank you, Tiffany. Again, folks, thanks for tuning in to Healthcare Marketing Executive. Tiffany Burnett, Chief Marketing Officer at KLAS Research with us today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And as always, check out the show notes for all of the short notes and links on ways you can get in touch with Tiffany and take your marketing game to the next level. Thank you all for tuning in. And Tiffany, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, Tom.